Real estate investing can bring big reward and big risks. So know your risks. Welcome to the Real Estate Risk Report, the show for real-world insight on real estate investment risk. Now, here's your host, Lance Peterson.
Thank you for joining the Real Estate Risk Report. I'm your host, Lance Peterson. So today I have with me Josh Ferrari. How you doing, Josh?
Fantastic, man. Excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you. Appreciate you taking the time. So we'll kind of jump right into it. Josh, why don't you share a little bit with us sort of how you got in the real estate business? I know you're an emerging sponsor. You're, growing your business and your deal flow and all those good things. But, how did you get started? Like what was sort of the impetus for getting into real estate, and where did you start? And kind of just walk us through your progression and what led you to forming your own firm.
Yeah. So I guess we'll fast forward all the way back to college then. I was trying to figure out what the heck I wanted to do in college and thought I was going to be a fighter pilot in the Navy, thought I was going to be a mechanical engineer, was already accepted into the ROTC program, already accepted to become an engineer at the University of Memphis, where I'm from, Memphis, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And then a month before I start, I said, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I think I'd rather come home every day to my family. Obviously didn't have a family at the time, wasn't even in college. But it's like when I did have a family, that's just really what I wanted for them and for me. So I said, well, I still love aviation. Why don't I fix airplanes? So I ended up going to a technical college to get my airframe and power plant license to be able to fix airplanes. Moved down here to Mobile, Alabama, where I've now been for the last 4 years, to start what I thought was going to be a long-standing career in aviation as an aircraft technician. And then it wasn't until, I say all that just to let you know, I have no background in finance whatsoever. I have no desire to do anything finance related, raise money, do any of that stuff. And about 6 months into having moved from Memphis to Mobile out of my parents' house, my dad calls me up one random day and tells me that him and my mom about to spend $40,000 on a course that was going to teach him how to flip houses. And I just thought that was weird. It's kind of like one of those jaw hit the floor moments. Like, I mean, if you just told me you're going to flip houses, that's one thing. I might be interested. But to start the conversation off with, hey, $40,000's going out the window because we're going to take this course. I was like, what? It just sounded schemy. It sounded weird. Like, where's the $40,000 coming from in the first place? I know you guys aren't like independently wealthy. Why real estate? Why right now? I just had so many questions. It turned into this 4-hour-long conversation where I just kept asking question after question after question because every question or every answer to the previous question was intriguing. How much money you can make, how you can partner with all these folks, how you can use other people's money, how there's so many different deals to be had, how it's all about like partnership, just all these things. And I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting, that's different. And so at the end of the conversation, I was just very interested and intrigued in the industry. So I ended up getting into wholesaling. I actually ended up reading 40 books that first year, more books than I'd ever read in my 21 years of existence up at the time. And I was listening to all the podcasts I could get a hold of, going to 3 different local real estate meetups. And at that point, after I had kind of just like dove headfirst into everything that was real estate, I was like, okay, let's start doing something. So we started wholesaling. We felt like it was the least risky, I guess, for me wanting to become active. And I didn't close a single deal. We did it for like 6 months. We had some deals under contract on the sell side, but nobody ever bought anything from us. So we just spent a bunch of money on marketing that ended up turning into nothing. And I was like, well, let's just pivot again because this isn't really what we want to do long term anyway. So we ended up buying a fourplex that we house hacked, which is like live in one of the units and rent out the other 3. And then I tell folks we quote-unquote syndicated it, but it was really before I knew what syndication was. I just didn't have the money for the down payment, and I knew that my dad was in real estate. So I thought maybe he wants to see me be successful. Maybe he'd be interested in getting a piece of the pie. I don't know. So I called him up. Sure enough, he was all for it. He paid for the down payment, and we kind of did somewhat of a handshake exchange for for equity, basically. And so you could say that was my introduction to raising money or doing a syndication, but more so than anything, it was my introduction to actually owning real estate, figuring out what the benefits were of that and the struggles, all of the millions and millions of struggles with owning real estate. That deal ended up being a living nightmare. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. We had like 4 different contractors walk with us in the beginning. None of them decided to actually take the job, which should have been a red flag. Then we finally got our last contractor. They ended up doubling the budget and tripling the timeline on the first unit. And so we had to fire them. And then it took 5 months to fire them and hire the new one because of all the paperwork with the FHA loan. And we could just go on and on and on. But it was a nightmare. But I did learn a lot. I got some clarity for what I did want to do, where I didn't want to do, kind of where we wanted our life to head, the lifestyle we wanted to live, what was going to help us create that. And so that's kind of when I slowly started stumbling upon syndication, larger multifamilies. Because we had this fourplex, so I liked the concept of having multiple units underneath one roof, but I wasn't really sure what that was supposed to look like because this one wasn't looking anything like that. So we started diving deeper and deeper into that, and there ended up being a guest coming to speak at our local real estate meetup. He's actually coming over from Pensacola to Mobile. And he was talking on multifamily syndication. I was like, perfect. I'm going to go check this out, see what he's got to say. I go, the meetup ends, and I remember just being like dumbfounded. Like, this is amazing. Everything he said is exactly what I want to do. It's the time frame I want to do it in. It's the way I want to do it in. It's allowing me to accomplish all the goals we want to accomplish through investing in real estate, like helping others, allowing others to invest, creating opportunities, bringing others alongside me, educating, all those things. Like, this is amazing. So afterwards, I ended up talking to the guy, found out we both had aviation in common. That was kind of how we clicked. And from there, he's kind of been somewhat of a mentor ever since. So we'll go ahead and fast forward to today. And I have 2 business partners. One lives in Gulf Shores, the other in Destin. So we're kind of on the southern or northern Florida Panhandle, southern Alabama, Gulf Coast spot. We've since closed a 21-unit single-family portfolio, a 42-unit apartment complex, 34-unit apartment complex, a single-family luxury flip, which was kind of a one-off, but we ended up liking it. So we might be chasing 2 or 3 of those a year at this point because it's going to profit us about $1 million on that one. So we were just really excited about it. Then we've also got another 148 units under contract, another 88 units under contract, about another 300 to 400 units worth of LOIs out right now, and we're really trying to hit 1,000 units in 2021 because we all want to get out of our W-2s and finally go full-time in this business.
Right. Yeah, so you've continued to do the aviation stuff, and is that... I mean, I think you guys get a pretty flexible schedule, don't you? Come so many days on, so many days off, stuff like that, or...
I guess it depends where you work. I could contract elsewhere if I wanted, and I could be a flight line mechanic, or I could actually get on the aircraft and be a technician that flies with the plane. And all those schedules would be different. But what I do now is I work at an MRO repair station, so it's kind of like a regular day job, so to say, where I work 6 o'clock to 3:30. It's actually Sunday through Thursday, and so it's kind of an interesting schedule, but. Every day I'm able to come home and work on the business, and that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 3.5 years.
Yeah. And have you found that, so how did you hook up with your partners? Was that through some of those meetups, and how did you guys kind of decide to join forces and
Yeah. So my first partner, Reggie, I always find it funny how we met because he lives in Gulf Shores. I live in Mobile, so we're only about 30 minutes from each other. But yet we met on an international website, Bigger Pockets. I just find that funny. But he found me on Bigger Pockets, saw what I was doing, that I was local, that we were kind of interested in the same things. He reached out to me and asked if I wanted to go grab some coffee. And I hate coffee, but that's what most people ask. So I was like, sure, we'll go. I'll go to this place and probably get a water or something, but I'll go hang out. So we go. And we just ended up finding out very quickly at this meetup that we had a lot of similarities. We had a lot of goals that were the same. He was a musician. He's been a bass player for a while, plays in a rock band, and I've loved metal music for the last 15 years, been a drummer for the last 15 years. So we both connected on the musical side. I was like, bro, forget real estate. Like, let's just go jam together. I can't believe you have a band. Like, I thought that was cool. And then he's really into exercising and being healthy and working out. I've always been really into a lot of those things. So we connected on that as well. We were both trying to transition at the time into multifamily. He had been doing single family for the last 10 years, only flipping houses and doing his own thing. But he was ready to do something bigger, better, create somewhat of a more passive level of income stream. And I was all about it. Like 100%. I was like, yeah, man, I've already got a mentor. I've already been reading a ton about this. I've networked with a gazillion people. And he's like, oh, really? Because he's like, I haven't done any of that. You know, I've just only been reading a little bit about it, and I haven't really met anyone in the space. I'm like, well, I'll be the connection guy. Like whatever. Like I'm all about this. So we actually ended up leaving that meetup not thinking that we were going to be partners, believe it or not. After all of that was said and discussed, yeah. We just left like, okay, super cool. We both are interested in the same markets. We've got another thing was complementary skill sets. We talked a little bit about what we like to do. I told him about my fourplex experience, and he was like, man, I love asset management. I love like making sure that the contractors are doing what they need to be doing. The property manager, like the business plan is operating efficiently. I'm like, bro, I'm so glad you like that, because I absolutely hate it. Like, I have the most traumatic experience with this fourplex. I much prefer to be the communications guy, talking with the investors, educating, kind of the marketer, investor relations, so to say. And he's like, well, that's cool because I'm an introvert and I don't like to do any of that. Like, I find it hard to believe that you're an introvert, but okay, you know. So that was cool. But anyway, we left just thinking that we were just cool dudes. Like, okay, you know, because we actually didn't speak again after that for another 2 months. And then a deal came along and we reached out to each other, and it just kind of went from there. It was like, okay, this makes sense. You know, we already know a lot about each other. We've still been following each other for the last 2 months. We just haven't spoken. But let's just see what happens. You know, let's see if this deal will end up. Of course, that deal ended up falling through. Didn't end up happening. But that was kind of the beginning of this could seriously work. This could really be a partnership. And then my third business partner I actually met from my mentor. He introduced us, which was awesome because, you know, that's like 80% of it right there, is to be introduced to someone that has the complementary skill set, that is already successful in the business, that is being referred to by someone you already trust. So, you know, they're not like scammy. Yeah. And then it was just a matter of going and meeting him and seeing, do we mesh well? Do we have the same goals? Do we have the same vision? Does our personalities kind of connect? And once that was it was like, boom. So then that became the trio partnership that we are now, and it's been that way ever since.
Yeah. No, that's what I find. It's a team sport, right? And I think you hit on it. It's that you need someone to be the asset management, obviously someone to do the investor relations, the communication. I mean, it's just huge. And I'm assuming that the third guy, is he more of an acquisitions guy? Like he's got deal flow, or where does he sort of play?
Yeah, so he helps a little bit on the acquisition side. I help on the acquisition side because I'm kind of the face of the brand, so to say. But he also helps a lot with liquidity, net worth, kind of getting approved for loans, signing on things, risk capital. And then he's also got a team of, because he works on the single family side of things as well, with a single family brokerage that he runs in Destin, Florida. So he's got a lot of assistants and things of that nature that kind of already work for him in that side of the business. So he helps us a lot on admin, kind of some of the more tedious things that we have to do to get, like getting quotes from contractors and stuff that has to be done, needs to be done well, but is it really truly beneficial to your time? So we outsource some of those things to some of his admins, but that's kind of where he falls into the play there, as well as capital raising. I raise a lot of the capital myself, but he, having his connections at Destin with buying and selling these $1 million homes, he has a lot of connections to large net worth people, and he helps on that front.
Yeah. So for you guys, what is sort of your acquisition strategy, and what? I mean, you kind of hit on that kind of luxury vein, but I mean, in the multifamily realm, how are you going out? Are you building a relationship with current owners, or is it like it's building this broker relationships? How do you guys? I mean, it sounds like you've figured out how to get into the deal flow, right? So there's something you're doing that seems to be working to create that velocity. So maybe walk us through, how you did that, how you guys go about keeping that pipeline, filled up and robust.
So the first deal we ever got was actually from my mentor. The first deal we closed on, I should say. Obviously, we had analyzed a ton of deals previous to that, submitted a bunch of different LOIs, tried to go through the process, and just kept falling out, no one taking us serious, always getting outbid or what have you. But it was good experience from that front. But it wasn't until my mentor actually just emailed me one day out of the blue and said that he had this deal. He needed to get out of the partnership. He bought it about 5 years ago when he was getting started in this market of Mobile. Partner with these two guys that haven't really done much of anything. He's looking to get out of it. It was ending the life cycle of the deal anyway. And he said, I want to sell it for such and such price in February of 2021. This was back in August of 2020. He said, but if we do that, it's going to be through a broker. I'm going to have to go through all the process. We're going to have to get the numbers up to where they need to be, and this is the price I'm going to sell it at. He said, but if you and your partner, because I had a partner, Reggie, at the time, if you and your partner think that you can close on this deal before the end of this year, 2020, and that we don't have to go through a broker, if you think we can do it just us, then I'll give you a $400,000 discount. And I just chuckled when I was reading this email, like, who wouldn't take this opportunity? Obviously I'm going to do some due diligence here, but by all means, I'm sending yes in all caps with exclamation points. Like, yes, I am interested 100%. Send me what you got. Let me start reviewing these documents. And that ended up being the first deal that we closed on. But since then, even before we closed on that, we just started having brokers start bringing us deals. Like, deals started flowing in. You talk about it once at a couple of meetups, and you meet a few people and talk about it, and maybe you post something on social media about how you're doing due diligence or how you got some deal under contract or whatever. Right. And folks start seeing that stuff, and now you become this person that is in the multifamily space, in that market, buying deals of that size, that caliber, and folks start bringing you deals. And so we had a few deals come our way. Obviously, not everyone worked out, but we had another 34 unit that we got under contract before we closed the 42. And then after that, we had the single family luxury flip we got under contract before we closed the 34. And then before we closed the single family house, we got another 148 units under contract. Before we closed the 148, we got another 88. And so it almost seemed like it was somewhat organic, and that we didn't really get a chance to decide what was the best strategy. But, we didn't just sit down and think, do we want to build, 1,000 relationships with all these different sellers, or do we want to build really strong relationships with 3 or 4 high-level brokers in our market? And obviously, I think if we had sat down and really thought about it, it would have made sense for us to go the broker route anyway. But the brokers almost made that decision for us. We were all just into the one deal that we had, like, we need to get this thing closed. And then before you know it, deals started flowing in. It's like, okay, obviously this is the route we need to go anyhow, because this is what's working. So ever since then, we've just kept going the broker route because it's what works. But we've also had time now to actually sit back and think about it. And brokers are definitely the way we want to go from here on out.
Yeah. And are you pretty much just looking in the Mobile and, the 3 markets that you guys represent? Is that where the 3 of you sort of land is where you're looking, or do you have other markets that beyond those? Kind of what's your territory or geography that you're looking in?
So initially we thought, that's the first thing you think. What market are we interested in? And Reggie had been in the game in the single family space for about 10 years previous to us beginning our partnership. And he had always been doing flips in Mobile. So, and he was born and raised in Mobile, and he just knows everyone that you could ever imagine. It's really crazy. Sometimes we go out and hang out, and we'll go to the freaking grocery store, and he's like, hey, that's my cousin's aunt's uncle's wife, ex-wife, daughter, and I know her from high school. And it's like, bro, just stop knowing everybody,
Yeah.
And so he knows a lot about the market. And so that was really what drew us to Mobile. That, and I was actually physically in Mobile. So I was, you could say, kind of the boots on the ground. And I had also done the fourplex in Mobile. I was a part of all the local real estate meetups in Mobile. So I knew a lot of people and had a lot of connections. So it just all kind of came together to make a lot of sense for us to stay in this Mobile region. But that wasn't the only market we were interested in. Obviously, we're also interested in Baldwin County, over there where Gulf Shores is, and Foley and Fairhope, as well as Pensacola, because that's where my mentor was, and then Destin, because that's where Matt lived, and then Panama City, because that was right up the street from where Matt lived. So kind of that northern Florida panhandle. We just haven't been able to find anything that makes sense for us in Florida. But markets we're targeting now are southern Alabama, so kind of this Mobile region, as well as some of the northern Alabama MSAs. Now that we're trying to grow and really hit 1,000 units, the 88 unit we have on a contract is actually in Montgomery. So we're starting to go a little further north and branch out.
Yeah. And then in terms of like your property management strategy, then who are you using to do the property management? Just you've partnered with a local firm, or are you guys doing some of that on your own? Or
right, so the first ever deal we closed, first multifamily deal I should say, we got the property manager, because that was the one we bought from my mentor. So he already had a property manager there, because he had gone through 3 or 4 property managers during his holding, and he was like, this is the best property manager I could find. She's done a great job turning it around. And we were like, all right, we'll give her a shot. We'll see how she does. She's already been there for a while. Can't hurt to see. Mm-hmm. And so now it's been 6 or 7 months. She's kind of fallen off the bandwagon. She doesn't really care about the property anymore. And she actually put in her 60-day leave of absence about 30, 40 days ago. So we're in the process of transitioning her out. But initially, we were starting with her. And then Reggie had a really close relationship because he also did a lot of rental buying over the last couple of years in Mobile. So he had some close relationships with some other property managers. I had built some really strong relationships with some other property managers that were local. And so we used his property manager first, which ended up working out very well for us because his company is actually in the process of expanding. Well, I guess it's been in the process of expanding over the last couple of years. He's really trying to vertically integrate and grow exponentially from now till I think he said 2025 or something. And I'm sure he won't even stop at that point. But he's in the he's got a construction arm that he started. He's got a flipping arm, a wholesaling arm. He's got all these different arms of business that he is running, as well as his property management being the main thing. So we're like, okay, we can get maintenance cheaper. And so we were just looking at it from strictly a vertically integrated perspective. But then come to find out, when we started diving into numbers and having a conversation with him, he actually didn't want to charge us payroll, which is huge in multifamily. Most of the time you see folks charge 3.5%, 4% fee or something along those lines, and then they charge payroll for the on-site leasing agent and the maintenance guy. Well, he said, I'm trying to grow my company anyway. I need to hire maintenance people for my construction arm, and I need to hire more leasing agents because we want to get more units up and running. And so I'm going to hire these folks that you guys need in these properties anyway. So why don't I just pay for the payroll side of things, and we'll just charge you guys a flat 8%. 8% management fee. So it was strictly incentivized up to that point for him to do as well as possible without that payroll piece being there. So that helped us tremendously on the expense side. So we went that route with him on some of the properties we've done. And now that we're in Montgomery, we're having to talk to some other property managers that are more in that spot. And so our initial outlook was, hey, we'll try a few different property managers. We'll try 3 or 4 different ones on some of the properties we start accumulating around here. And we'll see which one works the best. We'll see which one we like the best, which one we mesh with the best and has the best processes and systems and works well with our systems and the way we do things. And then we'll try to kind of tailor what we like to our other properties. And then we'll also be able to see who actually performs the best, which property manager in the area can perform with how they say they can perform. And then from there, we're like, we'll probably stick with 1 to 2 property managers on a little more of a permanent basis in these markets. And those are the folks we'll continue growing with as we continue growing in these markets.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Have you guys seen a lot more sort of out of town competition coming in? Because I know that everyone and their brother sort of like, Sun Belt, Southeast. You hear these markets pop up, Pensacola, Mobile. Where is that sort of at? Are you seeing more of that kind of activity, or does it still seem like, it's obviously there's, like you said, a lot of there's competition, but is it out of control like maybe it is in the Carolinas and some other spots?
Yeah, so Pensacola's always been more competitive than Mobile, even before COVID. It was just a bigger market. It was Florida. I guess that was just the attraction.
Yeah.
And then Mobile was kind of this unseen eyesore, I guess. I don't even know what you would call it, but it had very strong market economics. It had proven itself time and time again to be resilient, at least real estate, to the market. And there was just so many other different factors. We've got the Mobile Bay, which no other city has. No other city's going to have a natural resource of the Bay, which for Mobile, it brings in over like $12 billion of revenue to the city. And we've got oil and gas industries. We've got massive Airbus decided to spend billions of dollars to build their facility here in Mobile. And so it made a lot of sense for us to stick with Mobile. But even with all of that growth and with all of that, it was almost like outside eyes just weren't paying attention to it. Maybe because it was the third largest MSA in Alabama. So they were like, well, it's not the biggest, so not really interested. Plus, it's Alabama. And the population isn't that massive. It's like 500 or 600,000 people, so we're just not going to pay attention to it. But if you really dove into the statistics, it's actually the fastest growing MSA in Alabama, even though it's the third largest, along many other aspects. And so we were like, this is kind of like a hidden gem, this market that we're in, and the fact that we're local, and we've got all these connections. And Reggie, you've been investing here for a long time, so you know which areas are good and which areas are not, the typical go one street over and that's not where you want to be kind of thing. So we have, initially there wasn't a lot of competition. I think that's really what allowed us to get into the game and not be so competitive, I guess. But since COVID, it was lagging. Everyone else saying there's a ton of competition, cap rates were compressing. We were like, we're not seeing it. Thank God we're not seeing it. We're just going to keep gobbling up properties over here. But since probably about January, February of this year, 2021, we've seen some significant competition start rolling in. And it was almost like overnight. It wasn't like trickling. It was like a deal comes up and, oh my gosh, there's 40 offers on this deal. And they're going in best and final, and it's going like $5 million over purchase or over asking, and you're like, this is ridiculous. Cap rates starting to compress more significantly, and it's helping the economy, it's helping the market, especially on the seller side, I guess. But definitely some more competition. We've had to definitely create some of our own advantages, being local and having those relationships, and the property management piece we were talking about earlier, kind of implementing some of those things in order to really make deals pencil out, which I think is another thing that other syndicators or other active sponsors aren't really paying attention to, are those different aspects. So I think that's really given us a leg up, at least in the markets we're interested in.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think that's, I've always been a huge believer, and it's like pick your territory and figure out how to dominate it, right? Because competition, there's always going to be competition. So trying to run around and, chase markets or find the next thing, or it just seems like, I get it, but it's more of dominate Alabama, right? Dominate where you're at, figure that out, build those relationships, build a moat to the degree that you can. Because that's just it. Out-of-town buyers are, a lot of times they're dumb money, right? Like, so they're not on the ground. They don't know those things. They think they know those things, but they don't, right? And so, I always like to hear that. When I hear of syndicators or guys, that it just where they're really far afield. I don't know. It just makes me nervous as a prospective investor. Like, how do you know you're not the dumb money? How do you know you're not the guy who's overpaying? Not to mention just the fact that in a value add play, that's these aren't core assets. You're trying to drive value. So how do you do? You got to reposition them, doing it from afar. I mean, even working through property managers, I mean, you gotta be on them. You gotta manage the property manager, and doing that from 3 states or 4 states over seems difficult. So
yeah, we haven't gotten to the point where we feel comfortable really branching out super far. Montgomery's only probably 2.5, maybe 3 hours from kind of where we're at, and so we feel comfortable being able to be that driving distance from there if anything was to pop up. But anything really further than that, like 6 hours away, 7 hours away, 8, it's like that's a whole day of driving just to go fix one problem. Do we really feel like that's going to be the best use of our time? We're going to feel like we're going to have the biggest advantage there. Do we feel like if we buy this property, is it going to take a lot more of our time than all of our other properties and not produce the same result financially for us and for our investors? And so we're looking at a lot of different angles when we're picking our markets and when we're picking the deals that we decide to do, because we could probably have 500, 600, 700 units right now, at least under contract. But all of those units aren't going to produce the same financial benefit that the deals that we do have under contract are going to present. Not only for us, but also for our investors. We want to buy the juiciest deal, the best option, because it's going to be roughly the same amount of work, if not more, if you're buying a really larger asset that's really far away. So we want to make sure we're making the best decision there.
Yeah, no question about it. So how about, like, for you guys then, in your business plan, on that sort of the value add plan, what are the things that you're looking to do most with these assets that are under contract, or, are you, is it lighter value add, or you're sort of going in and renovating the units, or, what are you finding? Is it more just be more efficient with the expenses, or are you, adding amenities? Just curious as to sort of what's your sort of value add playbook look like?
So with the 148 unit portfolio that we've got, our game plan is to go in there and renovate a lot of the older units, because it is a portfolio, so it's 3 different properties. So some properties are newer, renovated, and the parking lot's good, and like just everything's kind of somewhat new, and so there's only just a few things we could do there as far as maybe amenities go or streamlining expenses to really add value on those properties. But then the other ones, they're somewhat older, kind of just that older vintage, so they need a lot of upgrades in order to command those market rents. Maybe they need a new parking lot, new roof, whatever it is. From that perspective, like that's the CapEx we're looking at on those particular deals, and then that'll allow us to increase rents across the board on all of those units, as well as streamlining expenses. We're trying to really hit every angle, because you're really having to be the best asset manager that you can be in this point in time. If you were to buy something back in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, you could have been Joe Blow strolling along, just deciding, hey, let me just throw money at this deal, not touch it again for the next 5 years or 6 years. And then right now, you could be like, I'm going to sell it and make bukus of money. You could have done nothing. But now we're really seeing how well syndicators and operators and managers, how well these folks are really managing these assets, how much they actually know about their market, they actually know about their deal, they're actually paying attention to what the property manager is doing and how the property's running, because you're having to pay attention to a lot of different aspects at this point. So we're really getting creative with utility paybacks and even low flow, like water conservation stuff. How can we decrease that bill? We've added smart locks, which has allowed us to market the property as a smart property, and that allows us to increase the rent. We've started doing some Airbnbs at certain properties that it makes sense in, or furnished rentals, like anything we can do to really elevate the amount of income that we can make on these properties. That's what we're doing, at least for the 148. But then for the 88 unit, that one's actually a massive value add, like $400 to $500 a month below market for these units. And so there is a lot of work that needs to be done in order to get those market rents. But there's a lot of spread there. There's a lot of room to increase the value, to really make the numbers make a lot of sense. So for that one, it's a little heavier on the actual renovation side, the CapEx side, versus the 148. It's a little heavier on the creative expense, streamlining, and then some minor CapEx things. So it just depends on the asset. But honestly, what we like are those deep value add opportunities, the things that need a lot of work that will allow us to provide a lot of property. At the end of the day, it gives you more control. I think what a lot of people like about real estate over stock market or over CDs or whatever is that you have absolutely no control over that. You have no idea what it's going to do. It's just a whimsical gamble, speculative, you could say. And so I think what most people like about real estate is that you have a lot more control. Even though you can't control the market, with multifamily specifically, you can control the valuation directly through the income you can produce. So we like the value add deals where we can significantly control what the property is going to be worth over the next couple of years, so that we can be sure, or at least mostly sure, that we're going to be able to provide the returns that we need for our investors.
Yep. No, I agree. I mean, it is. It's you are in control of your own destiny and executing your plan and, doing those things. And of course, that's where some fall down, right? So it's that very same control that they sort of stumble and fall and things don't go so well. But that is where you can create those outsized returns. Well, it's been great. I mean, so maybe share a little bit more about how people can learn more about what you guys are doing and your website, and how can they contact you and all those good things.
Yeah, so all of our contact information, all of our social media links is all on our website at glcap.co, or you can just go to ferraricapital.com. That was my previous website. We've since rebranded to Greenlight Capital, where it's myself and my other two business partners official as one singular entity. But all our information is on there. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can listen to our podcasts. Just anything your heart could desire. See all of our old deals that we've done. All that stuff's on the website.
Cool. Very good. Yeah. glcap.co. Very good. All right, Josh, good catching up with you, man. You have a great day. Thanks so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yep, we'll see you.